Hey there, this is Jeff, author at My Golf Mk7 and GTI owner and real-life test engineer. So this video is going to be about a video I'd watched. Someone had pointed it out to me a while back, which was a comparison of downpipes, or rather the effect that they had on the car. And this had come up, I had seen it referenced not too long ago in a discussion about downpipes. And it had been brought to my attention because it was basically the conclusion of this was using a catless downpipe was no different than using a catted one in the specific vehicle that this person had used. So I had watched the video, had some comments for the creator of that video, which they weren't very receptive to, which made me a little bit concerned because I questioned some of the conclusions they had. But this video has been referenced since then, and I thought I would point out what I saw as concerns from it so others could consider how much weight they want to give to the findings that this person had. So although the discussion or the test was of downpipes, there was really that as a contributing factor to something else. And something else is what it boils down to. They were checking power output using a dyno, but what that really came down to was what is the effect of the catalytic converter, which is really another way of saying the back pressure created by the exhaust. What is that effect on the turbine wheel in the turbocharger? That's fundamentally what this is about. It's a different part other than the turbo, and it is a different output other than measuring the efficiency that the turbine is operating at. It's kind of using a secondary measurement system with a number of other factors that can come into play that need to be controlled or some way, shape, or form in order to get good results. So the basics of this are you've got exhaust gas coming into the turbine housing, very hot at high pressure, and it accelerates and goes through the turbine wheel, and the efficiency and the amount of power that gets produced is partially dependent on a factor that's called the expansion ratio, and that is how much pressure is there before the wheel and how much pressure is there after, and that relates what's called expansion ratio. And preferably you've got less pressure after the turbine, so you've got a lot more pressure driving that turbine wheel, which increases the efficiency. And that's where the idea of removing the catalytic converter comes in, is you're lowering the back pressure, which raises the expansion ratio and allows you to get more energy from the turbine. If you're getting more energy out of a specific amount of exhaust gas, you don't have to push as much through the turbine, and you can lower the wastegate duty cycle. So that's the general idea. And all right, so with the downpipes, this isn't the one that was specifically being used, but it's to give you just a general visual. You've got, this is where the turbine housing is at. Exhaust gas is going through, goes through this catalytic converter, or in the case of a catless one, it just goes through open space. And this is a 400 cell per inch high flow. The one that was being done and used in this test was a 200 cell per inch aftermarket, and they were comparing it with, again, nothing there. So that was the basic setup of this test. They were using an Audi B9 S4 and an aftermarket downpipe compared to that same aftermarket downpipe with the catalytic converter removed, measuring power output while they were on the dyno. So based on the principles just gone over as far as the operating principles of a turbocharger and the turbine and how the expansion ratio and pressures work, you would expect to have more power without having a catalytic converter. And that was not the case in this test. There was a reduction in torque and a reduction in horsepower. And the person who did the test concluded that, for their setup, a catless downpipe did not make any more torque. On the surface, if you take that everything was done properly and everything was accounted for, that would not be an incorrect conclusion. But in this case, there was evidence that not all of the factors had been accounted for, nor had sufficient data been collected. So these were the concerns that I had when I saw this. First was the person who did the video said that they took of the 3 pulls that they did with each configuration, they were going to take the maximum reading and compare those. That is not good practice because you're immediately creating a bias towards the highest value in a set of data, which is not representative of that data. I mean, that's like the opposite of the definition of a average is taking the maximum. And those maximums are dependent on variance. And so there's a much greater chance that the highest value on either one is simply due to chance rather than actual performance differences. In a situation like this, where you had 3 poles, those 3 should have been used. At a minimum, 3 data points is needed. 1 prevents you from doing any type of confidence checking using statistical measures. You can't do a t-test to compare the means. You don't even have a mean because you've only got 1 value. You don't have any idea of what type of variability there is, what type of measurement error, what kind of noise, other things that could be going on. You have no, at least us as the viewers, the person who recorded this, but they didn't provide it. And when you know that type of information, you can then use it to evaluate the power of the test, which is, did you collect enough samples based on the variability to be able to conclude that on average, whatever the result is likely to be the case. So just from a data collection standpoint, there was some gross errors. So then also was the fact of the conditions, controlling the conditions. 90 minutes of downtime. In the questions that followed the video, one of the points that was made was that it was 47 degrees out, which is pretty cool. So if you're letting a car sit for 90 minutes in 47 degree temperature and it's an all-wheel drive car and you're testing it on a chassis dyno where drivetrain losses matter, and you've got tire pressure and all the lubricants between the wheel bearings and the drive shaft and the axles and the differential and the transmission, if those are all cooling off and you have more viscous lubricants, it's quite possible that you're not going to get as much power out. So that's another big concern, was other types of factors like that would have come into play. Now, with as much concern as I had about the analytical approach to evaluating the data, the process that was followed in gathering the data, I started to provide some feedback to the person who had done the test, and that didn't do anything to ease my concerns. They started off saying, "Hey, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer, I'm not even a mechanic." So I've seen this a few times in videos and other things from folks. When they say that, you need to take them seriously, meaning they may not understand what they don't know. You don't know what you don't know. If your knowledge base doesn't include scientific and engineering principles, perhaps you ought not be highly confident in the outcome of a test that you've conducted. What do I think took place here? Had the conditions been controlled and sufficient data been collected, I think they would have found that removing the catted downpipe led to an improvement in power output and some increase in torque. Probably wouldn't have been all that much, because the way the engine computer works, where it's got this target amount of output it's looking to do, and once that's met, it doesn't try and make more power. It doesn't try and raise boost pressure above what it's going for. If it's easier to get there, then it's easier, and that may help the volumetric efficiency of the engine a little bit, but you're not going to see boost pressure going way up to take advantage of it's easier. That's where that redoing of the tune comes in. So there probably should have been a little bit, and I bet there would have been. Really where the benefit of the catless downpipe is okay, now you've reduced the wastegate duty cycle by some percentage. That wasn't information that the person presented. They may have collected it. It'd be interesting to know how it changed. But it's there. It's like, okay, now things are more efficient. Let's go ahead and take care of that, take advantage of that increased efficiency to get more power out of the system for the same amount of boost pressure. So just in summary, don't recommend you referencing this video for anything related to vehicle performance. The methodology and the analysis had some issues. Look for something else. This is probably an example of something that, if you want to point to a comparison that was well done as far as the video production quality and the entertainment value, but from a technical standpoint, there is a lot to be desired. So hope this helps you with sifting through the information that's out there and making good decisions.